All right, Fox League's James Hooper has reported that Ash Taylor is now on the brink at the Titans, but also the Bulldogs have rejected looking at Ash Taylor. They were using his recent form as a bit of a barometer and whether they should recruit him to Canterbury Bankstown. They've now backed away. But this has been a question over Ash Taylor that's hung over the Gold Coast. Has he passed his use-by date?
Well, I think they've decided he has. I don't think they've officially tapped him on the shoulder yet, Bonnie, but he's been getting shopped around for a while now. He was offered to Canberra, obviously Canterbury. He's been dropped this week, and I think even Justin Holbrook, who's arguably been his greatest supporter, I mean, Justin's given him every chance to show that he warrants a new deal. I mean, I think Justin's now realised it's just not working. So, look, as I said, I don't think they've tapped him yet and said there's no deal for you next year, but I get the sense it's imminent and, you know, they've made the decision they're going to go another direction. I don't know where he's going to end up, Ash Taylor. It's remarkable.
I think the taps happened this week because you're playing for your season, your finals against the Knights, and arguably one of your more creative players has been given a long road into this game in terms of wearing the 6 jersey. And he gets the hook for Peachy. Yeah, I think that's the tap on the shoulder.
Well, Justin Holbrook is unsure if we will see Ash Taylor back for the Titans this year.
Ash hasn't had his best last couple of weeks and he's carrying a couple of little niggling injuries, so I just wanted to go with Peach and make sure we're sort of fully fit and firing for tomorrow night's game.
Has he played his last game tonight?
No, I don't know. You know, nothing's changed in that front of what I've been answering the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's open. We haven't made a decision there, and I've only picked the best side to play this weekend. It's no big statement of mine. It's just the best side and what I think can win the game against Newcastle. So I've got no idea whether it's not a yes or no on his future.
Justin Holbrook there, but Ash Taylor left out this week, and I think it's a sad result for Ash because he went to the Gold Coast on $1 million a year. He was one of the best juniors coming through, backed by Darren Lockyer to be one of the greats at the Broncos. He went down the road to the Gold Coast. And on that big paycheck, and you would never begrudge a player taking the big money because we all would take an offer like that. But with those dollar signs came so much responsibility and expectation, and unfortunately, Ash's career trajectory just hasn't lived up to that.
No, it hasn't. Look, when you take the $1 million paycheck, it creates that expectation whether you like it or not. Now, there's a lot of players who have taken it in the past. We're in this sort of the cusp of this period where in 5 years' time, they'll be fairly common $1 million a year contracts. You know, there'll be a couple at every club in another 5-10 years. But now we're getting to where they're just starting to break that barrier. It makes such big news, which then creates the expectation. But Ash is a guy who's got confused about what his football is. He doesn't know what he's going. He's like, remember Ian Baker Finch just completely lost his golf swing. Completely lost it. And the more he tried to work on it, and he actually got to a point towards the end of his career where he had to admit to himself that he will never get it back because he's so far removed from where it was, he's forgotten what it was. And Ash is a bit the same. Ash is, to me, it's got to be like Rocky 3. He's got to go back to a stinky old gym, train hard and find the eye of the tiger and get that hunger back inside him.
And we'd love to see that from Ash, but I don't. Does he have that drive?
Maybe not the stinky old gym. But
that's what he does.
Does Ash have that drive, that internal desire to go back and do the tough stuff? Because I know internally at the Titans have been a little bit disappointed with that effort and some of the lack in professionalism from Ash.
It's funny. I think every $1 million player has talent. It has natural ability. Every one of them has. The difference between earning that and moving on and going past it is hard work, resilience, toughness, and that's the biggest question mark. He's got the talent, and he obviously hasn't delivered in the other parts to live up to that hype.
The problem is, when you get... He was a young kid coming through, a lot of expectation, a lot of potential, and everybody recognised it, and he was much coveted. Everybody wanted him. And then when he signs the $1 million contract, if you're not careful, and they clearly weren't careful enough around him, when you sign the $1 million contract, there is a sense that you can get that you have achieved it. When in reality, it was just beginning.
Yeah, that's the issue right there.
And he had some distractions along the way. I mean, he obviously had some gambling problems that were pretty well documented, and
because he thought he'd achieved it all.
Yeah, and you're right, Bonnie. I think they're concerned that he doesn't have the hunger to get back there, and that's going to be a concern for if a club picks him up, and that's going to be why they don't pick him up, because they don't believe he's got the hunger to climb the mountain again. And he's been given every opportunity this year. He's only got himself to blame. I mean, they've given him every opportunity this year to earn a new deal, and he hasn't been able to earn it.
To the point there, Reedy, that Holbrook was coming under criticism from others within the club that he was giving too much love. That time to cut the umbilical cord here because it's not going to work out. And Holbrook was, look, we'll get him there. And ultimately now Holbrook yesterday when he announced the team, had to concede that with two games left, season on the line, he's not the guy for him.
James Hooper went on to say in that article, perhaps going back to basics, as you said, going back into the dirty old gym, maybe going back home, getting a little bit of bush footy, would that be the freshen up that Ash might need to reinstate that desire to be an NRL player?
The only person who can answer that is Ash. Honestly, like, if he wants to do it, then he does whatever it takes to get back into the arena and earn a contract. If he doesn't, then by all means, do whatever the next walk of life wants to take you, because at the end of the day, you've got to have a want and a desire to make it in this game, and if he does, then go ahead, but if he doesn't, then all's good.
So the Bulldogs have said no thank you. We heard Ricky Stewart confirm last week before, that he had spoken to Ash's manager, but I think that's gone cold now. So what are Ash's options?
Well, Canberra look in another direction, so he won't be going to Canberra. I don't know. I don't think he has a lot of options at the moment. I mean, I thought maybe Brisbane would take a look at him because he was a Brisbane kid. And for the right price, I would have thought he'd be handy in their system, but because he plays a bit like Adam Reynolds. But I don't think they're looking at him either. I don't know where he'll end up. I don't know that there's a lot of interest in Von. And it's quite, it's sad. But as I said, I feel for him, but he's also only got himself to blame. So in that respect, I don't feel a lot of sympathy for him.
Well, it's extraordinary you go from $1 million a year contract to everybody just go home.
Yeah.
Well, because it's a turn-off at that point, isn't it?
Well, but look...
I think someone will ultimately sign him.
Cheaply enough, someone will find him. Like minimum wage is, what, 130 these days in that vicinity? So if you start there and then go up, at some point...
And that's not Ash's fault that he got that paycheck. That's not his fault at all. And I think the clubs regret handing out that sort of stuff.
No, it's not the club's fault either, Vonnie. He was worth it when they paid it. It was something of a gamble, but they weren't the only club throwing big dollars at him. But it's on Ash that he sat back and relaxed. At the time he really needed to go and hit the gym and take his game to that new level, he behaved like he'd achieved it.